Surprisingly, a pop fantasy animated feature film festooned with cartoon ding-dongs and nudie parts, featuring a cast of difficult-to-love monsters working out their baggage over a course of a million subversive plot points, didn't really strike a chord with most film festival curators. This was a quote by an animator and filmmaker named Michael Hannigan, as part of an interview by the now-defunct website Geekadelphia regarding his animated feature film debut, a strange little independent movie made for little to no money that has nearly been forgotten over time. This is the 2009 adult animated gothic fantasy horror film called The Romantic. During my escapades on the internet, where I spent my free time looking to discover weirder and weirder obscure pieces of media, I came across a Tumblr post that had in its title the line, "The most forgotten animated film in the world." The post was an overview of what the user named Frankie Luyo claimed was a movie under serious threat of becoming lost media, titled The Romantic. Here's a short plot summary of the film. Set in a world of autumn landscapes, a young man known as the Romantic loses his feelings towards his partner. He visits the goddess Love, asking her to restore them, but the goddess warns him that there would be consequences. The Romantic, however, persists, and she reluctantly agrees. When he returns to his lover, he finds her with another man, and in a fit of rage, murders them both. Feeling betrayed by the gods, he sets out with his new companion named Patience on a path for blood and vengeance. The Tumblr user goes over the film being influenced by movies such as The Dark Crystal as well as Tim Burton's art style, which I could instantly tell just by looking at the poster. The user also talked about its adult nature, as well as how the film was animated using Flash and character puppet rig tools, which doesn't really look good in comparison to big budget animated films and shows, but as the post states, if The Romantic were released in separate parts on YouTube or Newgrounds as a series, I'm sure it would have been really successful and totally in its element. But it wasn't. The user then claims that they had a copy of the film but didn't want to state how. They also indicated that Michael, the director, released the film for free online through all kinds of platforms, including direct download, BitTorrent, Vimeo, and even directly through archive.org back in 2011, but it's no longer available on any of them. I immediately went around the internet checking to see what I could find, and like the post stated, everywhere the film had been previously available on no longer exists. I've only managed to find archive pages of the film and the director's websites, the original Vimeo upload, which of course doesn't play, and old interviews with the director. Only stills from the film were available, with the only existing footage I could find at the time being in a music video by a band called the Frisbees that used the footage from the film like an AMV. I knew the Tumblr user had a copy of the film, but his account didn't allow messages from users he didn't follow, so I went to Reddit for help and made a post regarding the film on r/lostmedia. There was immediate interest from the community, which meant the search had begun, and then a few hours later it had ended. What the fuck? A user by the name Master Weedu stated that he had a low quality copy of the film, around 240p, and shared it on a Google Drive, which was instantly downloaded by other users, archived on archive.org, and uploaded to YouTube. Another user named Infinite Core also found the trailer. I shouldn't have been surprised since it was previously available nearly everywhere online before being removed, and it turns out the film is under the Creative Commons license, as stated in the beginning of the movie, which also mentions that you can copy it, remix it, and do whatever you wish with the film. We also later found a 480p copy of the film on a pirating site. This made me want to go back to the film's archived webpage to learn more about its production, and this is what I found out. The website stated that The Romantic had no budget, took 3 years to make, and is unlike any animated feature film ever made. I learned more about Michael, the director, thanks to the info on the site. Michael was an artist living in North Philadelphia, with The Romantic being his first animated feature film. He began to conceive the idea during his final years in college, as he was planning out his senior thesis, but then thought of making it into a feature, which he stated was an absurd idea at first. A few reasons led him to the feature film decision, such as there not being too many independent animated feature films being made at the time, and not many of them being made for an adult audience, as well as how a feature-length runtime would help him dive deeper into the characters, and that technology has evolved to a point where he could easily access the tools to make this happen for very little money. So Michael went to work and made the first 12 minutes of the film as his senior thesis. He then enlisted the help of his friends who were fellow animators, artists, actors from around the Philadelphia region, and they agreed to work without pay to bring the film into fruition. A rough cut of the film was completed in August of 2009, and began its festival run with mixed success. Going back to the interview by Geekadelphia, Michael states that submitting to film festivals was far more expensive than making the film itself. The Romantic didn't have a budget, only a few expenses here and there, such as sketchbooks, pencils, as well as pizza and beer for production meetings. In total, he spent around $500 on the production of the film. The festival run then came to an end, and 2 years later, on February 14, 2011, The Romantic was released for free on the internet under the Creative Commons license. But as we previously mentioned, the film's online presence had nearly disappeared. The website stated that it used to be available in HD 720p quality, so I was still on the search for that version. I decided to send Michael an email through the address I found on his archived website, asking him about the film, but sadly that email was expired. I instead went back to the Tumblr post and found out that I can message the user through an ask option on their page, so I decided to see if the copy they had was an HD version. Luckily for me, they answered pretty quickly, but sadly they only had a similar low quality version. I then found a different website for an animator also named Mike Hennigan, and was wondering if it was the same person, so I sent them an email, but it turns out to be a different guy. I even managed to track down contact info for the musician behind the movie's OST, named Nathan Terry, and sent him a message via his website as well. I didn't know if I'd be receiving an answer anytime soon, so instead I went back to the copy I had of the film and decided to give it a watch. The film was quite an interesting viewing experience. Many parts of the dialogue and storytelling felt almost like an Edgar Allan Poe poem, which is fitting considering its Gothic aesthetic, though don't expect me to get into more details regarding that aspect since I barely know anything regarding Gothic literature.
You guys are posers!
Strangely though, other parts of the dialogue does get quite goofy in a lot of places. The film plays out like an old fable, and what interested me the most about it is that though the story was quite captivating and an easy watch, it was very clearly a person's first film. The film utilizes very basic animation techniques, such as rigging 2D drawn puppets and moving them via keyframes, which looks janky, but the characters and environments are drawn beautifully, even though simplistically. Their design is very reminiscent of Tim Burton's art style as well as German expressionism. It's one of those projects made with very little resources and money where the creators still try to make it the best it can be. However, outside of the animation, there are other things that make the low-budget aspect of the film show, and that's the voice acting and sound design. The voice actors do the best they can even though they're not professionals, or at least it doesn't seem like they are. Since the casting was limited to the people the director already knew, not all the voices felt like they fit perfectly with the characters depicted. In my opinion, pretty much every facet of The Romantic showcases interesting potential, but with an imperfect execution. All these limitations together make many parts of the film feel a bit awkward, though it was used to their advantage for some comedic effect.
He ripped off my balls.
What?!
Basically, the film has traits of an ambitious student film, but a student film nonetheless. There are two aspects in the script that felt off, one regarding a certain passage of time that wasn't clear to me at first, and another regarding a storyline with a side villain that also wasn't clear whether or not it was resolved by the end. I am surprised with how much I enjoyed it though, and like the Tumblr user said, this film would have had the perfect audience if it was uploaded to places such as Newgrounds. So as I began to think about why this film was taken down by the creator, I received a notification on Reddit. It was a reply to my r/lost media post from a very recently made account that, to my surprise, claimed to be the director of The Romantic, Michael Patrick Hennigan. Michael stated that a close friend of his reached out to him about the search for this film, and funny enough, at the same time I received an email from the film's composer Nathan Terry, confirming that he's the one who told Mike about the search. Michael stated that The Romantic was removed from public distribution for different small reasons that made him want to take it down. According to him, he still has an HD copy of the film on his hard drive but isn't interested in re-releasing it to the public again. Though he wasn't clear on the reasoning behind it, he did say that his feelings do eventually change over time and that he might one day re-upload the film. He thanked everyone for their interest and support for his work and that he might be able to answer a few questions. But then...
Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
That being said, this is where I'm ending the video. If you're new here, my name is Sami and I make videos about interesting media, mainly lost or obscure, as well as making my own movies with a deep dive into my filmmaking process. So if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, then make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.